Okay, so with all the intro done, let's just dive right into what the session one is going to be all about. So this session today, particularly today, is designed for you to pause, to consider why well-being is important to you personally and as a business leader. Okay, that's what you are. Okay, you might be new in leadership, or all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, they could just start with your leadership journey, and so it will be important. Well-being will be crucially important to you. We have executive burnout at the moment, so a lot of C-suite directors, some of your bosses are struggling as well. And I think it's because when they were training, this was not something that they needed to focus on. And so we would love for you to be able to use this opportunity to focus, pause about why it could be important to you long-term as a business leader. We also wanted to be able to think about how stress impacts all of us differently. It will impact you differently, it impacts your team differently. So it's about trying to figure out what your specific area or risk factor is, what we call in the clinical word risk factor, the things that are likely to trip you up. It'd be completely different from someone else, which is why we want to be able to talk about what that could be for you and be able to work out what your personal well-being strategy could be moving forward. Bearing in mind that they could change, your strategy changes as your life changes, as things evolve for you. But once you get the basics of how it's done, you'll be able to adjust to it when things change for you in your life. Okay. Now we're also going to get you to act on it, to commit to an area of self-improvement throughout the 6-month program, because the idea is for you to be able to work what's working, what's not working for you, and then you can compare and contrast with other team members and your colleagues as well, to be able to discuss the well-being, the well-being discussion within your workplace. I think it's crucial for this part of the training, which means that when you start to go back into your job, into your work, and your one-to-ones, that we're hoping that at the end of the program, you will start talking about your self-improvement, what you are doing for your well-being personally for yourself. Therefore, and that will start to create this subtle psychological safety with your team that allows them to know that actually they can come to you with stuff because you are taking this sort of thing seriously as well. But that is what the session will be designed for you to do. Now, as for what the overall objective of the sort of program, the Ragged Leader program, is that you as line managers or people managers will learn why we need new leaders in the workplace. It's so that you can start to lead with empathy, to be able to help to foster a culture of openness and psychological safety within your team. It will be crucial for building trust and resilience with your employees and team members, okay? The role of the new team leader within the workplace well-being context, so that you can start to understand yourself, your role as a leader in a post-pandemic workplace, which has completely and dramatically changed. It's slightly different, well, a lot different from when before the pandemic, and it will continue to evolve as we go. A lot of companies are offering hybrid learning. You guys are one of those. So therefore, we're going to be thinking about how we can be malleable, is that the word, to be able to move as needed for what your team requires from you, okay? So the third, one of the things we're going to talk about is one of our favorite topics, the well-being black hole. Thinking about how poor mental health or mental ill health impacts team productivity in general. It's one of the first things that start to bring down productivity, but one of the last things for managers or leaders to spot, simply because it is still rooted, mental health and mental ill health and poor mental health is still rooted in stigma. So people, even though they say they're comfortable talking about it, and you might say you're comfortable talking about it, your team might say the same thing, but the practicality of when you're dealing with something really difficult, like going through a divorce or going through menopause, or just having this really bad day or recurrent issues or trauma that had returned in your life, it is difficult to talk about those things to someone that you don't really know very well, or difficult to talk to someone who is not experienced at dealing with those things. Okay, that's what I wanted you to hear there. And it'd be easy when we talk about the wellbeing black hole, we're going to see how easy it is for one person's problem to become everybody's problem, or it affects everybody, including the wider family, wider network. It's astonishing how that happened. And we're going to talk about that. And the purpose of it is to allow you to start to tackle that one problem that you didn't think would be an issue in your team, to be able to tackle it quite quickly before it balloons out and takes everybody down with it. So we'll be talking about that in session 2. Also, you're going to learn how to spot the subtle signs of mental distress in your team. Now, a lot of managers, I'm sure I think I know from your contact with your HR that you've already done some level of mental health training. It's just not as sort of robust as this one we're doing right now. So you probably already know how to spot the obvious signs of mental health already. So someone would be low in mood, not talking, all of that stuff. But we're going to talk about the subtle ones, the ones that are not very obvious. One of them might just include things like bullying, where somebody is bullying somebody else, but you don't really know, you just assume it's a behavioral problem, or it makes the person just being a, son of a bitch, excuse my language. But it might just be that they're struggling. So the question is, how do you determine which is which? How do you determine a real SOB to someone who is actually struggling and it's taking him a while? And this is how he's exhibiting it at work, okay? And finally, we will not let you leave these trainings without practical tools and techniques that you're going to use to make the most of your one-to-one with your direct report, okay? The idea is so that you can incorporate sound mental health practices within your daily people management. It is your responsibility, and it might feel overwhelming about why is this your role right now? You're not a therapist, and you are not a therapist. This training and these workshops and the programs are designed not for you to be therapist, but just how to use your own personality, your own intuition, your own empathy to be able to help someone real quickly, help your team members so quickly that they get help sooner, that when you're performance managing them, it's not this punitive big deal. It is in collaboration, and we're going to teach you how to do that so you don't feel like you are not a manager, a kind manager or something, and that's not it at all. You can still performance manage your team, root out bad behaviors, root out poor performance, but basically doing it with empathy and with the right support around you. Okay, so that is what this training is going to be about. Okay, so we're going to be breaking you into breakout rooms. That will be one of the premises of how this program to run, to be able to have discussions, come back and share it. So for the purpose of today's session 1, we're going to be covering what is well-being, why you should care, and well-being, mental health, stress, early signs of stress and stuff like that. So it would be great to be able to do that. But what I want to do, we will get you into breakout room as soon as possible to be able to start talking about how things have been for you in the last year or so. Okay. All right. Looking forward to that in a minute.